All righty. Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live all across the internet. If you can hear me out there from the darkness, from the spooky backdrop right here, let us know in the comments if you can hear us. My name's Patrick. I work for the Monterey Bay Aquarium social media team, and we are here for episode 3 of Hey, Remember This? Because we are getting ready to reopen the aquarium here imminently. Some of you folks out there, if you are members, you may have already gotten your tickets for those special member days. Thank you so much if you got your reservation, if you are going to be joining us there. We cannot wait to see you. We're getting everything ready here in the building, and there are still tickets available out there for you members. So head on over to the website. Make sure that you're logging in with your email associated with your membership. You can get those tickets going. And for the rest of the folks out there joining us from all around the world, I see you folks tuning in over there on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter. We've got folks there in the chat. If you are not a member with the aquarium, you can become one if you'd like, or we are going to be opening up ticket sales on May 5th for everybody out there for our grand reopening May 15th. After about 14 months of closure here at the aquarium. But we're getting ready. We're not closing anything down. We're reopening everything. That's why we're here doing this particular live stream. Joining me in the spooky darkness here on the back end of this production, we've got Emily, as always. Emily is right back there. Hey, Emily. Emily is going to be making sure that we get to your questions here in a timely manner. But we wanted to introduce to you our very, very special guest, because if you know this area of the aquarium, you know that we are in the dark backside to the kelp forest exhibit. We've talked about the sea otters, talked about the kelp, and now we are looking at the rest of the incredible habitats you can find right off the back deck of the aquarium all throughout the Monterey Bay, represented in our Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our senior aquarist, Melissa, here. Melissa, how are you doing this morning? Doing amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your job here at the aquarium?
My name's Melissa. I'm a senior aquarist here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I take care of all sorts of creatures here, and I am in charge of the giant sea bass, the 3 very large fish in this tank, in their training.
That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about the giant sea bass while we get started here? Because that's one of the questions that we have had a few times here on these streams. There are a few animals in here that seem to have missed the people while we were closed, and the giant sea bass, you were saying, is one of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 3 different sizes and ages of sea bass in this exhibit. The medium-sized one, we found out, actually really misses you guys. She, a couple days after closure, I was still coming doing my checks with her, and of course, still doing the daily feedings and training sessions. But she just would always, as soon as I would walk by, she would come up to the window. Turns out she also likes selfies of herself. So
really? Selfies?
Yep. So when you come back, if you want to try to get a selfie, she will swim up to the window and look at herself in your camera. So I'm sure she's super excited to have more faces to look at besides mine.
That's amazing. I didn't realize the giant sea bass enjoyed the selfies so much there. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in on Twitch. Thanks everybody over there on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook as well. Thank you so much for joining in. So a few questions that we're having here, Melissa, aside from the giant sea bass, which we will hopefully see coming by here shortly. Can you describe to us a little bit about what we're seeing behind you and what is displayed in the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit? Generally speaking, why is it different from the kelp forest or from other parts of the aquarium?
Still local species. Everything here is found locally. It is just to represent a slightly different habitat than the kelp forest next door behind this. Over on the one side, we have a little bit of the deeper reef shale rock, which is another very common habitat around this area. And so we just have all of the species that you commonly find, including Sevengill Sharks too. Can't forget those guys.
No. Can you tell us more about the sharks?
Yeah, we have Sevengill Sharks, and during the closure we did release our largest one. We don't keep our sharks forever. They come here and then we re-release them. We tag them so we know that they're doing well. But we do still have a small one in here, and she's doing great. She's Somewhere around here.
They always seem to hide right when we decide to mention them on the stream. Although in the background, currently lurking, maybe wondering if there's a selfie happening, we do have there in the background one of those giant sea bass, maybe interesting in coming over here. But super quick, Melissa, I have this second camera angle over here. Some folks might be wondering, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here in that deeper reef section you were mentioning?
In this section over here, we have some of our local white anemones, Metridium, and just some gorgonians. It's a little bit deeper, just to represent kind of the shale, rockier areas, a little bit past the kelp.
Okay, excellent. Let's see, Emily, do we have any specific questions here for Melissa yet? So stand by, Melissa. We're looking to see what kind of questions the folks may have out there. I'm going to pass the mic over to Emily real quick.
All right. People are very excited about the sea bass and selfies with the sea bass. But this is a question that we get often. Melissa, do you have a favorite fish in here? Is it the sea bass?
I don't like to pick favorites, but it's yes. The sea bass are definitely my favorites. And out of the three, they all do have different personalities, believe it or not. You can tell the difference between the three of them. They're very, very different fish. And like I said, I do lead the training for them, so I have the opportunity to really get to know them and work with them. So they are my favorite, and I might be slightly partial to the big one.
That's excellent. Can you tell us, for the folks who may not have heard before, how do these giant sea bass come to be here at the aquarium, and are they a part of any research that we might be doing on this species?
These guys are protected endangered species. They were overfished a lot in history, but now they are protected. So we're still learning a lot about them. We don't necessarily know too much. We don't know what their current populations are, but there are studies going on about where they aggregate for spawning, things like that. We usually get these guys in as 1.1 grams, so like super, super tiny babies. The three in this tank have been here for quite some time. The largest one, I've heard rumors she's been here the entire time. She came in about football size, so she's probably around 35-ish years old, maybe. And then the other two, I'm not quite sure when we got those in, but we do collaborate with local researchers on the species. During the closure, we were able to successfully use the training techniques to do a health exam on all three of them.
Wow. Can you describe a little bit more of what those trainings might look like, because we know we have a lot of folks out there that are consistent, amazing viewers of the Shark Cam, have it on in the background all day long, and kind of build a relationship with these animals. Can you tell us a little bit about what those training sessions look like? If folks might be watching them, what might they get to see during those training sessions?
Training sessions with these guys twice a week, and the purpose of it is, if you're watching, you'll see three divers get in the water with a blue tarp looking thing, which is a stretcher. We initially started these training sessions in order to do their routine freshwater baths, which is something that we do every 3 months or so. And that it doesn't hurt the fish at all, but we need to get them into that stretcher, lift them up, and put them into fresh water, which will kill the parasites, but the fish are just fine. And if you can imagine trying to get a 300-pound fish into a stretcher that might not want to go, it's kind of difficult. So we've created different targets for each fish, and they now will follow the target into the stretcher willingly and let us close it on them so that we can make this much less stressful. Wow. We also do tons of other stuff. We might look like weirdos, but you might see us sprinkling sand, or like taking out our octoregulator and blowing some bubbles along the sand bottom. This is something that we realize that they somewhat enjoy, and it's just a form of an enrichment for them. We also will do head pats, where we put our hand gently on their head, and that too will just help them get used to, during these exams, having a hand, having a person touching them, and they do it all willingly.
That's amazing. Can you describe to us a little bit more the bubble bath? Because some of the folks out there may know there are some videos that go viral every so often of a scuba diver out with a giant manta ray out there blowing bubbles, and it's this thing that fish seem to seek out. So similarly with giant sea bass there, what is it about the bubbles? Can you tell us about the giant sea bass jacuzzi, as it were? That's awesome.
Yeah, so it is something I discovered. I used to work with Goliath groupers in Florida, and giant sea bass are pretty much the cold water versions of Goliath groupers. And I realized that particular species liked the bubbles. In the wild, they do have cleaner fish that will come up and clean their gills and clean those parasites off of it. Now, using the bubbles does not actually do any of that, but my best guess is it just feels good. It's a fun sensation for them. And everything we do is voluntary. We don't ever chase them down and make them have bubbles. We just offer it up and allow them to swim over it. They'll swim over, they'll stop, they'll just sit there, and we'll just allow them to have it for as long as they want.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so giant sea bass, bubble bass, you might get to see those there on the stream. Just wanted to welcome everybody who might be tuning in live right now. If you are just joining us, my name's Patrick. I work for the Monterey Bay Aquarium social media team. I'm joined by Emily off here to the side, making sure that we're getting at all of your questions. And then we have senior aquarist Melissa, who's here joining us right now with the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. For those of you wondering, this is not an extension of the Kelp Forest exhibit. It is on the back side of it, but shows off some of those other very interesting environments that we have out here in the Monterey Bay. And this is part of our series. This is number 3 of Hey, Remember This, of really, really amazing exhibits that we have here at the aquarium that you will all get to see very, very soon here, because the aquarium is reopening in May for our members to start, and then May 15th for the general public. If you're a member, your tickets are available right now. You can head over to our website, log on to your membership account. You'll be able to buy those tickets there. And for the rest of the general public, there May the 5th. So one day after Star Wars Day, May the 4th, the Revenge of the 5th on the next day is when y'all will be able to purchase your tickets for the aquarium. All of those reservations are happening online, MontereyBayAquarium.org, and you'll get to come and see the giant sea bass, and maybe you'll even be here when there's a little bit of bubble training, a little bubble bath stuff going on there on the side. Melissa, back to you very quickly. Some folks had questions about what's happening over here on these rocks, what those plant-like, flowery-looking things are on the rocks, and some folks are also wondering, what are some of the other fish kind of in the background besides the giant sea bass and the sharks? What kind of other fish species are in here that we don't have in the rest of the aquarium?
Things are white-plumed anemones, Metridium as they're known of, and they are like this just out back. They grow in these amazing Metridium fields like this, which is just amazing to have that kind of coloration, and it's just such a bright, even though they're white, it's a nice pop in these waters. The other fish species, there's a lot of rockfish in here. We have some local salmon in here. Oh, we have a sturgeon. He's really cool. Some bat rays. The sturgeon will probably make a swim by at some point in time. And we actually have some divers getting in now to feed the Sevengill and the bat rays. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So I'm just putting myself back on camera here real quick, because this is a little bit of an enrichment happening right now for everybody, a feeding session, a little bit of other things happening. Melissa, can you describe to us what's going on here with the diving?
Yeah, so these 2 divers will be getting in, and they will be feeding the Sevengill Sharks, the angel shark. Depending on where she is, you might be able to actually see her. And then they will also target feed the bat rays, and then they will also feed all the leopard sharks and some of the other bottom-dwelling fish that don't get a chance to eat from the broadcast feed. So they will go down. One person will use tongs to feed the shark, and the other one will just be there to fend, judge, just, be their eyes. And then they will go into the back of the tank to feed the leopard sharks, and then they will come up here and feed the bat rays.
That's excellent. So everybody stay tuned if you want to see a little bit more of what's happening to turn my microphone on. Stay tuned, everybody, for a little bit of a feeding here happening in the background. Some bits of equipment that are being seen right now. You might be able to walk us through. We currently have a fish on a stick. Can you tell us about the fish on a stick that is migrating over to this side? Oh, we might have to switch cameras. But here, tell us about fish on a stick.
The fish on a stick is designated for our angel shark. Super, super cool species. Sightings of her are somewhat rare because they do bury themselves in the sand. So they're going to go over to where she is, and she will, if she's hungry, she'll jump up and grab it. Oh, right. Yep. So she took it, kind of. And the stick too. But that sighting is pretty cool because, as you can see, she is buried in the sand.
We can see a tail. We can see an angel shark tail. So see a little bit of the angel shark tail there. Oh, and look, and the camera can't even keep up with what we're doing here, Melissa. This is completely unscripted and but also unbelievable to get to see the angel shark. So she's right below the window, and she is a flattened shark. So if you're looking for an angel shark out there in the wild, they're in the sand, hanging out in the dunes, like to be an ambush predator out there to grab some stuff. Emily on the assist holding the camera. I think we're good. We're going to move away from our angel shark friend as she has just gotten her sardine breakfast. But then can you describe to us, Melissa, the rest of what's happening there in the background, because we've got a little bit of a stick with some foam and mesh on there, not your typical trident that you see from Poseidon and the rest. So can you tell us a little bit about that magical wand that's now swimming away from us there in the background?
Just used as a fending stick. It's not, we don't ever really use it, but just in case another species comes up while you're trying to feed, like if one of the giant sea bass comes up and tries to steal the Sevengill's food, it's just there to kind of help have a little bit of a buffer to make sure that we can get the food to the animals that we're intending to get it to. But for the most part, it usually just sits on the ground as a visual for them of like, okay, I don't go here.
Gotcha. Awesome. And for the folks that are just tuning in, welcome everybody to the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. We're here with senior aquarist extraordinaire Melissa, talking a little bit about the animals. Oh, sorry, there's a shark on camera. I should go back to her real quick. There's the Sevengill Sharks swimming right on by there. So we got lots of amazing animals, lots of amazing stories and work, and we also have some divers in here doing some feeding. You just got to see that angel shark there. For those of you that are wondering, if you want to see the other episodes of this Hey Remember This series, they're available on Twitch VOD, on our Facebook page if you're scrolling back, and then over there on a playlist over on YouTube, so you can watch the rest of those interviews there. And if you do have any more questions, we're going to be live here with Melissa on these platforms for just a few more minutes here, and then we'll be switching over to an Instagram Live if you want to hang out with us there, and also over there on TikTok shortly. We just have Melissa for a short while before she has to get back to work, getting the aquarium ready for us to reopen. But so in the meantime there, Emily, do we have any pressing questions here for Melissa?
We have gotten so many questions. It's very, very difficult to choose just a couple of them to throw to you right now, but I think that this one is particularly important because we can see part of the answer to it right now. Melissa, folks are curious, how do we keep the giant sea bass and the sharks from eating their neighbors here inside of the exhibit?
Well, they're fish. We keep them well fed from us. For both the sharks and the giant sea bass, we do calculate how many calories they're getting, how much fat content they're getting, and so we judge it based on their size and all of that. So we do that, but they're also wild animals. Like if they think a rockfish seems tasty that day, they will maybe snack on one. But for the most part, they know that, especially with the sea bass and the sharks, they know that we mean food, and we feed them on such a regular basis and keep them full so that they're not needing to go and look for food.
Gotcha. Understood. So, yeah, I'm looking again, Emily, all those different questions that we have going on over there. So passing it. Oh, and there's me in the darkness. I'm just now seeing myself on screen. But yeah, for those of you who have any more questions for Melissa, put those in the chat right now. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever it happens to be, and we'll answer those shortly. One of the questions that we did get is, when do you get to dive in this exhibit? How frequently are you diving in here? And what does it take to become a diver that gets to go into an exhibit that has all of these sharks in there? A lot of people are wondering, what's it like for the divers to be in there with all these big mouths in there? And it's a little bit of a different experience than folks might expect.
I am in this tank at least twice a week, mainly for the sea bass training dives. But there's also the Sevengill feeding dive that happens twice a week as well. And then we always use help from our amazing volunteer divers. Yeah. They are in here scrubbing the windows, just scrubbing everything. So it's a great opportunity if you're a diver and you want to get in, come join our volunteer dive team and we will put you to work scrubbing something.
Excellent. Emily, do you see any other questions here for Melissa?
Yeah, like I said, lots of questions. So apologies if we don't get to everyone's questions. I'm going to do my best to try and answer them in the chats as well. But Melissa, this one was really fun. A lot of folks are familiar with the different kinds of enrichments that we can give to our octopus and our sea otters. What kind of enrichments do we give to our fish?
It depends on the species. I love enrichments and I love trying to come up with them for all kinds of creatures. I have a tropical puffer upstairs that gets ice cubes as an enrichment. For these fish, it's the bubbles, the sand. You may in the future see some fake strands of seagrass going in. That will be during our training sessions, and that will also be another form of enrichment. It's just something that can be used as a tactile. They can swim through, it feels a little bit different. And also too, just looking through the acrylic at them too. With the medium sea bass, that is definitely enrichment for her. She will come and look at videos on your phone. She will look at herself. I sit down here on my computer a lot and I will feel eyes watching me. And she will be looking over my shoulder, proofreading everything that I'm typing. So that's an enrichment too. Fish, all different species of fish will watch videos. Like, there's all sorts of enrichments that you can do for fish.
Is there any specific playlist that they prefer? Do they prefer political commentary, or is it like sporting recaps, or baking shows? Like, what are we talking for sea bass content?
I haven't quite figured it out yet. I myself am a huge hockey fan, so I have subjected them to a little bit of hockey. I couldn't tell if it was a favorite or not, but it also varies from day to day too.
So they're excited about wheel snipe sellies. That's the only hockey term that I know from a popular TV show out there. So we have another question here currently that I think would be pretty interesting. This is actually something that I don't know, but we talk about it with different job titles. Can you describe to us what is the difference between a senior aquarist, a regular aquarist? How does one rise to your level there of being a senior aquarist, as we have the divers coming back very close to us and grabbing some cool krill milkshakes, or not, there's no milk in there, krill shakes we call them, going over to the Metridiums. But can you tell us a little bit about your job title? How does one reach senior aquarist?
Yeah, so to get to a senior aquarist, I myself started off many years ago as a volunteer, and then I got hired on as an assistant biologist. So I was just working part-time, like 3 days a week, just learning the ins and outs of animal husbandry and how to take care of the animals and how to take care of the exhibits and all of that stuff. And then I moved up, once I got some more of that knowledge, I moved up to a biologist 1, gained more knowledge and experience, moved up to a 2, again, more knowledge and experience. And then senior is just pretty much just coming into work and learning new things.
That's excellent. Yeah, so for the folks out there, if you start off as an aquarist, just keep on doing what you're doing, and then you'll be rising up there. Speaking of doing what they're doing, we're currently here live with a feeding session happening with the bat rays there.
Yeah, so they also are target trained. Those white circles with the black cross on it is the target. So once those go down, the bat rays know, like, oh, this is where I need to go to get my food. So they will come over, and they are getting a delicious meal of oysters on the half shell. And you can see them eating, and then we take the shell away, and they get hand-fed each one of their pieces.
Just so you know, people are melting down right now over on Twitch and a few other places. Look at the flaps. Look at the sea raviolis. Lots of fun internet names for all of our flat shark friends. Can you tell us a little bit about those bat rays there? Because folks may know the bat ray touch pool at the aquarium. There's a bat rays in a few different spots in the aviary here in the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. People are saying they're so cute. Of course, tell us about these little puppy dogs currently enjoying some oysters, which, I mean, I wish I could get in on that a little bit later too. But tell us a little bit about the flat flaps here.
These guys are obviously a local species. They're found very commonly around here. And they will kind of sit on the bottom like that and swim all around too. But in our open ocean tank, we also have rays in there, but those are more of the pelagic species. Those are the pelagic rays. So these guys are a little bit more of that bottom dwelling. They do have that adorable face. And they are eating oysters, which is what they do. Their mouth is kind of like a crushing plate in there, so they can kind of like scoop it, and it kind of, the one likes to sit and chew on her food for a little bit. But yeah, they're just a very common species found in this area, and they're great rays.
That's awesome. I am noticing, Melissa, I'm sorry to call anybody out there on the dive team, but I'm seeing a distinct lack of lemon wedges and hot sauce. I'm just wondering, the bat rays, do they have specific preparation? Probably grilling, a little bit difficult, bring them back underwater. But tell us maybe a little bit more about the prep that goes into making food for these animals in here, because that's a part of the job that most people are not seeing. They just see the food come out. Lots of work goes on behind the scenes, right?
It is a lot of work, and one of the divers that you see in there is another senior aquarist, Anne. She is responsible for the rest of this tank besides the giant sea bass and all of the elasmobranchs, the sharks and rays in all of this building. She gets in and she starts prepping all of this food. She shucks the oysters. She gets them prepared. She weighs it out to make sure that each bat ray gets the proper amount of food. She also makes sure that, you know, the angel shark gets her food, and the Sevengills, and just, it's a lot of prep time to prepare the food for everybody in the tank, and then to get in and feed it too.
Excellent. We have one more question here, and then we'll maybe go to a rapid fire round with Emily. Whoa. Turn my microphone on. There it is. So a question, some of the folks out there know that the bat rays have a stinger on them, have a little barb on there. Is that a concern currently for the divers in there, is the question?
They do have a barb, and it would not feel good to get barbed by one, but they don't want to use it. It is only used for protection and it does grow back just like a fingernail. But they're not going to try to come up and stab any of the divers or anything. They're used to us being in there. Yeah, so having the barb on them is not dangerous whatsoever.
And we just got to see one of the aquarists actually nudge one of the bat rays on along that swam up very lovingly to go to try to grab an extra oyster. So yeah, looks like everything is very peaceful over there on that side. So with that, Emily, I think what we're going to do now, just looking at the time, is a quick round of, let me see, where's my camera? Hold on. So, Emily, rapid fire questions.
All right, this is the perfect scene, actually, Patrick, if you leave it on this one, because folks can see some orange and white striped fish next to the divers right now, and a lot of people are familiar with Nemo from Finding Nemo. Looks a lot like him, but a lot bigger. Can you introduce us to those orange and white striped fish?
Those are rockfish. There's many species of rockfish in this area, and I'm not going to lie, I come from tropical fish land, so I am still learning all of the different species of rockfish, but that is a local rockfish species that you go out back and they're there.
Yeah, don't worry. I think that in this exhibit alone, there's like 14 different species.
Yes,
of rockfish,
there is.
so.
I try every day to figure it out, but then I'm like, I don't. Yes, I'm learning. Oh, and there goes our sturgeon.
All right, and then Pat, you need to switch over to. There we go. To my mic. People need to hear me too, Pat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to backseat drive. I know you're doing great. Okay. People are curious if we have any other kinds of rays at the aquarium.
We do have more of the bat rays in the touch pool, and then in the open ocean tank we do have the pelagic ray. Those guys are much larger than these ones. And yeah, like their name says, they are found out in the open ocean.
Very nice. And then another question here. People are curious, is this exhibit connected to the Kelp Forest exhibit at all?
Not necessarily, but kind of, sort of, yes. All of the water we get just from out back. We have 2 pipes that are out in the bay. They come into our facility. We have some that is filtered and some that is just raw seawater. The Kelp Forest exhibit is the first exhibit that does get the water coming in, but then that water then comes over to here and goes to all of our other smaller exhibits. So they are connected by water, but not necessarily like connected.
Understood.
Wonderful. Another person is curious if we ever find shark teeth in here. I love that question.
All of the time. I am still not very good at it. But Anne, the aquarist in there, she is like a shark radar finder. I don't know how she does it. Like she'll come up from a dive with like 20 shark teeth and like I didn't see any. So yes, because depending upon how many Sevengills we have at a time, we'll find more or less. But yeah, we'll even find them in the open seas tank sometimes too from our hammerheads.
Thank you so much for all of those questions there, Melissa. We see so many more questions that are coming by right now. And if you want those specific questions answered, you can send us a DM if you want, or you can join us momentarily. We're going to be heading over to Instagram to do another live here with Melissa. We're going to be wrapping this particular show up of Hey, Remember This with the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. Melissa, just wanted to go back to you for one last question. What is something that you are excited for the visitors to get to come and see after a year of closure? What are you really looking forward to having people back in the building?
Well, just having people. I'm sure the medium sea bass is going to be very excited to have other people's faces to look at besides mine. And I am somewhat partial, but I do want to share more of their training program. So if you're in and you see something going on in there that looks a little weird with a giant blue stretcher thing, hang out, watch it. It's pretty cool to watch. And yeah, so I'm excited to get some people back in here.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending time here with us this morning. Shout out to everybody out there who tuned in live for this broadcast. These will all be available once we're done here. Once it's processed on the back end of these different platforms, you'll be able to watch that there. And yeah, looking forward to having all of you folks back in the building very soon to watch us at work, watch the animals, and get to enjoy a little bit more of what's going on. It seems right now that we've got the krill shakes going into the water right now. Here, let me just take Melissa off right there. You can see the krill shakes going in there. That cloud going to feed the anemones. So Lots happening right now, getting ready for the aquarium to reopen for all of you folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to sign off here again, heading over to Instagram and TikTok if you want to watch us there. Thank you. If you watched the replay, you made it to this point. We cannot wait to have you back here in the building. With that, this has been Hey, Remember This at the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Thanks everybody.